presented by Exquisite Timepieces. More about them in the description down below and later in the video. So I've been on a quest of sorts, a quest to find the perfect everyday, do-anything wristwatch. A casual, daily watch that can do double duty for more formal occasions, but also be right at home on the wrist at the beach or a family barbecue. I've looked at several options over the last year and I haven't found it yet. But to be clear, I'm in no real rush to find it. Like I said, I'm looking for the perfect watch. What I don't want is a full-on sports watch, so no divers, no overly complicated watches like chronographs, although those watches could fill the everyday watch role to a degree. But no, I want a simple, classic-looking watch. I want something that is time-only, and maybe with a date. And I want something that is durable and reliable, so a bracelet and 100 meters of water resistance or more is ideal. And something that's not too big, but not too small. Right in that Goldilocks zone of being just the right size. I have tried some real good contenders so far, including the Rolex Explorer 36mm, which is a watch that has one of my all-time favorite dials, and I've also tried the 38mm Omega Seamaster Aquaterra, maybe the best all-around watch that I've ever seen. But I am still searching, because while those and a few others that I've seen have been awesome, nothing that I have seen has been that walk-off grand slam quite yet. And so, the search has brought me to this. The Grand Seiko SBGA203, and it's brought up the question, could this be the perfect everyday watch? Well, almost. Now, before we get into that, please give me a moment to mention my sponsor, Exquisite Timepieces. They are a brick-and-mortar retailer and a Grand Seiko authorized dealer located in Naples, Florida. Now, you can find their contact info down in the description of this video, so visit their website, exquisitetimepieces.com, or give them a call when you're looking for your next watch. And if you're in the Naples, Florida area on Thursday, November 4th, Exquisite is holding a Grand Seiko event from 6 to 8 p.m. So if you're interested in learning more about that event or attending, I'll leave that information down in the description as well. Now, back to the watch. The SBGA 203 is a spring drive Grand Seiko in a very similar vein as the Snowflake, but it has a black dial instead of white, and it's in stainless steel instead of titanium. And it's almost $1,000 less expensive, which I have to say I really like. But aside from those differences, it is otherwise largely the same. 41mm in case diameter with a 49mm lug-to-lug length and 12.5mm in thickness with a 20mm lug width. It's a stainless steel case and a bracelet with a mix of fine brushing and mirror-like Zaratsu polishing. It offers a screw-down crown with 100 meters of water resistance and an anti-reflective sapphire crystal, as well as the extremely accurate movement, the 9R65 spring drive. It really does have almost all of the attributes I'm looking for in an everyday watch. In taking a closer look at the watch case, in typical Grand Seiko fashion, the fit and finishing, it is superb. It's hard to believe the price is only $4,900 based on how nicely finished it is compared to other, much more expensive watches. The Grand Seiko signed crown, it's excellent as well, and being slightly oversized with awesome knurling for a grippy texture, it makes it absolutely perfect to use. Then there's the 5-piece link-style bracelet, mostly brushed with a bit of polishing on the outer sides of the center links and, of course, the edges of the outer links. It is a bit flashy, but it's not too much. It's got just the right amount of bling without going overboard with fully polished center links, in my opinion anyway. The 3-fold push-button released Grand Seiko signed clasp finishes off the bracelet, which meets the clasp after a slight taper. And like the rest of the package, it's finished to near perfection. On the rear of the case, we're greeted with a display case back, proudly showing off that 9R series spring drive movement. And you know, often with display case backs, they just don't feel justified. Sometimes the movements on these mid-priced luxury watches don't always have the decorative finish necessary to really need an exhibition window. But on this watch, the movement looks pretty good, and it's probably worth seeing. Speaking of the movement, I'm not going to get into all of the technical specs of the spring drive. I have covered that in other videos. But here's what's important to me. It's an automatic self-winding movement with a 72-hour power reserve that is accurate to plus or minus 15 seconds per month. And of course, the second hand sweeps more smoothly than just about anything on the market. That's all I really need to know that I like it. Now the dial. It is a simple black dial, but for me, an everyday watch shouldn't be too flashy. A flat black or maybe a dark blue or a gray dial, that's about as adventurous as I want to get. And for my money, this dial, along with the handset, is absolutely stunning. The dial markers, the printing, and the applied logo, and of course the sword-style handset Grand Seiko is known for, all look stunning. It even has a nicely framed date window at the 3-hour position, which is a nice bonus. Of course, it does have that power reserve indicator between the 7th and 8th hour position, and I know a lot of people don't like that, but honestly, I don't mind it. Now, would it be better without it? I don't know, maybe, but I think it's just fine. So what is the problem? I said this was almost the perfect watch. It sounds like I really like it, and I do really like it, until I put it on. Just like the Snowflake, this watch is a little too big for me, and it's not like the measurements are outrageous, because I've owned larger watches, like the Omega Speedmaster. The problem for me is that while I don't mind a slightly larger sports watch, I don't prefer larger time-only watches. If this were a diver, the dimensions would be fine for me, and in fact, in looking at it next to the Rolex Submariner, the Grand Seiko presents a little bit bigger actually, which I guess it should. It has a larger diameter and it has a longer lug-to-lug length. Plus the dial is much bigger, which really gives that presentation an even bigger push forward. Now, at least for me, a diver, or any other sports watch for that matter, just looks better bigger than something like this time-only, sort of hybrid casual to somewhat dressy watch. The second issue that I have with it is the clasp, which, while it is fairly nicely finished and constructed, offers very limited adjustability. And yeah, the bracelet does have half links, but my experience with watches that don't offer a lot of adjustment in the clasp is that sometimes they fit well and sometimes they just don't. And it's sort of a matter of luck as to whether or not it's going to fit me. And depending on the time of year, that can change pretty significantly. So I kind of hate gambling on whether or not my watch is going to have a comfortable fit from one season to the next. Despite that, if Grand Seiko were to bring something like this out in, say, 38 millimeters with a 46 millimeter lug-to-lug length, I can promise that they'd have me as a customer. I love the look and the design and style and the overall vibe of this watch. It's very much like the big brother to one of my all-time favorite Seiko watches, the SARB 033. It's just a little bit too much of a bigger brother. Now, obviously, the size issues that I have with the watch are going to be totally different from one person to the next. My wrist is 6½ inches in diameter, which is funny, actually. And if you've been watching me for a while, you might say, but Guy, you always said your wrist is 6¾ inches. And you'd be right. I did always used to say that, because that's how big my wrist was. However, I've lost like 20 pounds over the past year, and I recently realized that my wrist has shrunk 1/4 inch. So yeah, that just goes to show how helpful micro adjustments on the clasp can be. But I digress. Like I said, the issues with size will vary from one person to the next based on your wrist size or just your personal preference. But in general, my preference is to go with something smaller than this. Unfortunately, it's a watch that I otherwise love everything else about. So Grand Seiko, if you're watching this, do me a favor, please release this in 38 millimeters. I've been dying to add a Grand Seiko to my collection, and the only thing really holding me back is the size. If you do that, you won't be able to take my money fast enough.